Mary Stuart, Queen of France, Queen of Scotland, and claimant to the English throne, lived a short life that resembled an adventure novel with a tragic ending. Men played a pivotal role in her destiny. She married 3 times, but each union ended in sorrow. Her final marriage ultimately led her to the executioner's block. A glance into the water's gleam draws me toward a solemn dream. At night I feel his tender hand. A kiss, a touch I understand. Asleep or not, I do not know. For him alone my heart does glow. 6 months after Francis's death, Mary's mother passed away. Mary now faced a choice: remain in France or return to Scotland. She chose to return, though some believe the decision was influenced by Catherine de' Medici. At that time, Mary was 18 years old, 13 of which she had spent in France. So in 1561, she set sail for her homeland. As her ship departed, a vessel carrying people sank before her eyes, an event many saw as an ominous sign. All were distressed, but Mary alone remained calm and courageous, wrote a contemporary observer. Upon arriving in Scotland, Mary faced a political challenge. Queen Elizabeth of England issued an ultimatum. Permission to cross English territory would be granted only if Mary renounced the military alliance between Scotland and France. Mary found this demand unacceptable. Moreover, since childhood, Mary had believed herself to be the rightful heir to the English throne. She reached Scotland by sea and was deeply disappointed. The country was poor and vastly different from the cultured, sophisticated France she had left behind. Scottish barons, unlike the English, did not submit to their queen. Her arrival intensified all the intrigues, scandals, and power struggles between Catholics and Protestants, as Mary herself was Catholic. At first, she behaved wisely and cautiously, not openly supporting either side. But after 2 years, she officially recognized Protestantism as the state religion, thereby permanently spoiling her relationship with Catholics. Mary was the daughter of James V of Scotland and the French princess Mary of Guise. Barely a week after her birth, she became queen due to her father's death. His last words upon hearing that a daughter had been born instead of the long-awaited son were filled with despair. It came with a lass, and it will go with a lass. The political situation in Scotland was tense, torn between factions allied with England and those supporting France, as well as between Catholics and Protestants. Accustomed to the carefree life in France, Mary showed little interest in state affairs and entrusted the governance of the kingdom to her half-brother, James Stuart. She settled in a palace in Edinburgh and began step by step to recreate her beloved France within the gloomy castle, buying paintings, tapestries, expensive furniture, and cherished books. She and her entourage dressed, entertained themselves, and spoke only in the French manner. All that was expected of the queen was to dance at balls and delight her subjects with her beauty and youth, and this she did successfully. Among those who came to Scotland as part of the royal suite was Pierre de Chatelard, a French poet and nobleman, a devoted admirer of Mary. He wrote love poems in her honor and praised her beauty. One evening, the servants, as usual, inspected the queen's bedroom before her arrival and found Chatelard hiding under the bed. The obsessive admirer was ordered to leave, but the poet could not suppress his mad passion. 2 nights later, as Mary was preparing for bed, she found him again in her room. Frightened, the queen raised the alarm. Chatelard was arrested and executed a few days later. Despite this episode, male attention was far from unwelcome to her. Several suitors vied for her hand: Don Carlos, son of the Spanish king, an Austrian archduke, the kings of Denmark, Sweden, and others, all with their own political interests. But something unexpected happened. Mary fell in love. Instead of a king or prince, she chose to marry the handsome Lord Darnley, her cousin. Mary appeared at the wedding in a mourning gown, the same one she had worn for her husband Francis, wanting to show she had not forgotten her first marriage and that this new union was only her duty to the state. Darnley was the grandson of Margaret Tudor and ranked right after Elizabeth Emir in the line of succession. Protestant Scotland was disappointed in its queen, for she had chosen a Catholic husband, and Mary herself soon became disappointed in her spouse. His worst traits emerged: vanity, foolishness, treachery, and lack of restraint. Before the wedding, he had charmed all of Edinburgh with his manners and musical talent, and had seemed so romantic to Mary. But contemporary accounts describe her second husband as an ambitious and deceitful man. In reality, Darnley's sole aim appeared to be ruling as king. As she cooled toward him, the queen grew close to the Italian David Rizzio, appointing him her secretary. Like Mary, Rizzio was Catholic, which irritated the Protestant nobles. They feared he was a papal spy who had cunningly deceived the queen. According to historical chronicles, Rizzio was soon murdered by Darnley's associates. The queen's favorite received 57 stab wounds, one of them inflicted by Darnley himself. The assassination took place in Mary's chamber while she was 6 months pregnant. The queen tried to protect her loyal servant but failed. In 1566, Mary gave birth to a son, James, but Darnley refused to acknowledge the child as his own. She then decided to split the alliance of conspirators and pretended to reconcile with her husband. Her ruse succeeded, and Darnley drew the wrath of the very lords with whom he had planned Rizzio's murder. The truce between the spouses, however, did not last long. Mary was now consumed by a new passion. She believed she had finally found her devoted knight. Mary's next chosen one was James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell, the complete opposite of Darnley. He was far from handsome, but brave and decisive, a seasoned commander. This passionate and ill-fated affair is widely believed to have marked the beginning of Mary Stuart's downfall. Whether Bothwell truly loved Mary remains uncertain. Perhaps he only sought power, but she devoted herself to him entirely, even writing him a sonnet. For him I forgot my honor. My only joy is in his life. To him I yield my power and conscience. After the pro-French faction gained the upper hand, England declared war on Scotland. Thus, under the reign of a child queen, Scotland became a battleground for two foreign powers. When Henry II ascended the French throne, he sought to strengthen France's influence in Scotland by arranging a marriage between Mary and the Dauphin Francis. Mary was just 5 years old when she was sent to France, where she was raised alongside the daughters of Catherine de' Medici. For him, I cast off my family. Despised in my own homeland, I forgot all my friends for him. I seek support among my enemies, gave up my pride and name, so that he may rise, I would die. My crown and throne I give to him. And perhaps one day he will see that I only sought to serve him, to be his possession. The French Renaissance had begun, and the royal court in France was the most enlightened and refined in Europe. Mary Stuart mastered Italian, had an excellent command of Latin and Greek, and studied history, geography, and music. She was a beauty, tall, fair-haired with a reddish tint, possessing delicate features and intelligent eyes. With her graceful figure and cheerful, kind nature, she charmed everyone at the French court. Poems were written in her honor. To bring him all blessings, to love him immovably, to lead him to the heights of virtue. Roughly a year after the Italian's murder, Lord Darnley was also killed, most likely at the hands of Protestant conspirators. They achieved their goal. Elizabeth I of England wrote with thinly veiled satisfaction, "I have betrayed the duty of a loving friend if I hadn't told you what the world already says aloud. They say that instead of seeking the murderer, you let the killers slip away. But believe me, I would never think so low of you and still regard you as a daughter." In 1993, the Royal Society of Edinburgh reopened the investigation into this mysterious crime. Historians concluded that Mary Stuart had no involvement in Darnley's murder. But in 1567, if Mary had wanted to avoid suspicion, she should have refrained from taking a new favorite. Instead of mourning for 40 days behind drawn curtains, she went riding with Bothwell just 12 days after Darnley's death, and only 3 months later, she married again. Unsurprisingly, many blamed her new husband, the Earl of Bothwell, for Darnley's murder. Once again, her third husband was a Catholic, an unforgivable mistake in Protestant Scotland. A rebellion broke out. The army raised by Mary and led by Bothwell was defeated. Bothwell fled to Denmark, where he was imprisoned for old crimes. After 10 years in chains, he went insane and died. Mary was imprisoned in a castle where she gave birth to stillborn twins. In 1567, the Scottish Parliament convened, justified the uprising and her imprisonment. Accused of complicity in Darnley's murder, Mary was forced to abdicate in front of 2 notaries. 5 days later, her infant son James was crowned. Mary managed to escape captivity and gathered an army of 6,000 loyalists, but they were defeated at the Battle of Langside. She fled Scotland, intending to sail to France to seek support from her de Guise relatives, but she had no ship. So she made the fateful choice to head to England and trust in Elizabeth. It was a disastrous decision. Elizabeth took advantage of the situation and made Mary her prisoner. It seems Elizabeth harbored a personal dislike for her. They were very different queens. Elizabeth sought to win her people's love and present herself as a devoted monarch. She often said, "You may have a wise ruler, but never one who loves you more." At the age of 16, Mary married Francis II, who was 14 at the time. For the wedding, she chose a white gown, introducing the tradition of white bridal dresses in France, where red had been customary. Her dress was made of satin embroidered with pearls, and her shoulders were draped with an 11-meter-long mantle encrusted with jewels. Mary was unusually tall, 180 meters, while Francis was short and rather plain, yet their relationship was harmonious. Elizabeth even rejected marriage, famously claiming she was wedded to the nation. She wrote poetry as well. Queens are slaves to their great fate. To obey their hearts they dare not. I chose a life without a husband, so that someday beneath this stone they'll read of England's virgin queen. Mary, in contrast, had the reputation of a scandalous woman who followed her heart more than political necessity when choosing husbands. By entrusting herself to the will of the Englishwoman Elizabeth, Mary signed her own death warrant. Elizabeth I initiated an investigation into the murder of Lord Darnley, promising that regardless of its outcome, Mary would return to Scotland as Queen. The commission neither declared her guilty nor innocent, yet she was kept under arrest. This imprisonment dragged on for 19 long years. In captivity, Mary's health declined. Harsh conditions took their toll. Constant exposure to cold and damp rooms led to recurring bouts of arthritis and rheumatism. These sufferings aged the queen prematurely. Not yet 40, she'd become gray and broken by illness. Everyone she had loved had died. Her son, raised in another faith, became a complete stranger to her. She wrote, "What have I become? Why do I still breathe?" A year after their marriage, Francis II became King of France following the death of his father, Henry II, during a jousting tournament. However, Francis's reign was brief. His health was fragile, and a fistula in his ear led to gangrene, which caused his death. Mary, the young queen, wrote a poignant poem mourning her husband. A body without a soul, a shadow of what once was, tossed by a cruel wind. In life I now only seek death. Catholics made numerous attempts to free her, but every conspiracy was uncovered by Elizabeth's spies. The plots did not teach Mary caution. Even in captivity, she began dangerous correspondence with a young nobleman, Anthony Babington, who led a conspiracy to overthrow Elizabeth and restore Mary. These very letters fell into Elizabeth's hands. A trial began. Mary Stuart was found guilty of conspiring against the Queen. Despite pressure from Parliament, Elizabeth delayed signing the death warrant for 6 months, fearing the reaction of European monarchs. Yet eventually, the sentence was signed. Mary wrote to Elizabeth I, "I beg your majesty to order the execution not in some hidden place, but before my servants and other witnesses, so they may later testify that I remained faithful to the true church, and thus defend my death." How hard to grieve by day and night. She was executed 1 week after the verdict. Eyewitnesses claimed that Mary maintained royal composure. While her outer garments and jewelry were removed, she did not shed a tear nor flinch. She even found the strength to comfort her weeping servants. As her body was carried away, a tiny dog was discovered hidden in the folds of her dress. It had remained unnoticed the whole time and now clung to her lifeless form, refusing to leave, a symbol of true devotion. Thus ended the life of Mary Stuart. She was buried at Peterborough Cathedral. After her execution, her son James publicly mourned. But that night he told those around him, "Now I am the only king." After Elizabethane's death in 1603, Mary Stuart's son James would inherit the English crown, and rebellious Scotland would finally be united with England. 46 years later, the Stuart family curse would strike again. Her grandson, Charles the Fawn, would lay his head upon the block, when glancing upward, clouded skies reveal his eyes that still shine.